What is going on? What is going on? Shout out to everybody. Y'all already know it's Tuesday, so that means it's Comic Relief episode 25. Y'all already know how it's going down. Your boy Morbius. And I'm excited today, man. Shout out to everybody who's here. Shout out to everybody who's catching the replay. I appreciate you. Make sure y'all hit that sub, hit that like button. And before we continue, I got to bring on my guest co-host today. It's none other than the homie, Paul. Y'all know him as PJMorris. What's good, my brother? Get up in here.
What's happening? What's going on, brother?
Chilling, man. Appreciate you coming on today. Thank you for riding this roller coaster with me today. You know, it's gonna be fun. We got, of course, none other than our special guest today, which I'm excited to have. It's the homie that I had a pleasure to meet, you know, in person at Terrificon not too long ago, which was crazy because this brother I didn't even know he was that big, man. I thought this guy was like, you know, average height, and this guy's like a giant, man. He's saying the camera don't do no justice. And let's bring him in as we introduce him. Shout out to the homie Albertlovescomics, as we know Albert. What's good, brother?
All good, man. I'm honored to be here. I've been watching since the beginning. And really, like I've been following you on Instagram since the beginning.
Facts.
So this is a huge honor to be here. I'm so excited. I see the chat is already live. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. Everybody, speaking of the chat, you know what I mean? Let's just get into the chat. I know I got to go back a little bit here. I know earlier I saw we had SpineTicks in the building. Salute, my bro. Appreciate you guys doing amazing things. You know, Unruly Simeon, what's good, man? Always in the building, showing love. Definitely had Comics Kings, Brandon, my brother, was good. Appreciate you. He's already going in. He's already hot. Look at him. He's hot. He's hot, bro. He's like, yo, let's get it. You know, of course, got the brother Steve, always in the building. Salute, man, representing. It's huge. You know, we got, who we got here? We got LG. Help me out here, guys. How we LG? Huevos, right? What's good, my brother? Appreciate you stopping in. You know what I mean? And then what else we got here? Who else we got in the bill? Oh, we got the homie Jason. What's good, bro? Chilling. Yo, Jason's like, he's straight thugging, man. Every time I see him in pictures, bro, he look like he ready to like straight rob you, bro. He looking straight thugged out. And of course, you know, we got the homegirl up in the building, Michelle. What's good? Moonlit Comics representing, you know, should be killing it. And let's see everybody else. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, seems like that's everybody in the building. Appreciate you guys. Just got Sov just jumped in.
Hey.
Yeah, Sov will be here next week. I know Sov was supposed to be here this week, but he's gonna be here next week for sure. So make sure y'all tune in for that one. But yeah, guys, before we go any further, before we even get to the topic, just want to do a quick cheers. Cheers to everybody in the chat. Cheers to everybody catching the replay. Y'all already know how we do here. Salute. Brother, Albert, what you drinking?
This is a wine, some red wine. I don't know.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. I was looking around the apartment because I don't have a lot of liquor in the house, but I knew I had to raise a toast.
Yeah, man. Of course, you already know.
Yeah.
Brother, what you drinking, PJ?
We're going. I used to be a big Heineken drinker, then I stopped for years. But lately, ever since Terrificon, actually, I kind of been
all right.
digging back into Heineken. So
nice. All right, y'all already know I do the Henny. For those who don't know, Henny.
That's not the Henny from. That's not from Terrificon, is it?
No, that's not from Terrificon.
That was gone that night.
That was done that same night. You know. Shout out to my homeboy and my brother. Pedro Diaz, Guy the General, salute to you, my brother. Shout out to Azor Tigers in the building in here. Was goody.
Good,
you know, we also got Kyle up in here. Was good, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, man. So we're looking like got another brother up in here. Salute to Fable Station, my brother. You already know Station. So yeah, man. So today's topic, you know, is basically Marvel versus DC, you could say. And it's not really per se versus. It's just, I was going to say more. It's just, obviously, we all have different opinions. We all have, you know, different things that we grew up with and different publishings that we kind of like, you know, seem to how can I say, vibe with more than another, or some people do both. Some people really enjoy Marvel and DC. Some of us do Marvel, some do DC. So I figured, you know what, why not have a conversation with somebody who is pretty much like, I'm not gonna say polar opposite, but someone who is strong in their enjoyment of the DC universe, and someone who's not. So I figured this would be a great conversation to have, because of course we all have our different opinions, and I would love to know what it is that draws you to what, Marvel or DC. So I guess let's just start it off with PJ. What's your take? How you feel about Marvel compared to DC, or DC compared to Marvel?
Well, I would say for most people who follow me on IG, it's probably pretty obvious to figure out where my allegiances lie. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Marvel fan. That's pretty well established. Just because when I started collecting in the early '80s, that was, I actually started collecting G.I. Joe comics. That's what got me into comics. So obviously the ads in the G.I. Joes, I already knew Spidey from like the cartoon, Spidey and His Amazing Friend. So anyway, that's how I got into Marvel, and it just kind of stayed that way. The only real DC books I picked up in the later '80s was when, so I was a big Frank Miller and John Byrne fan, when they kind of jumped ship to DC in about '86. So I picked up, which I don't like at all, Superman. But I bought that, the Man of Steel miniseries by John Byrne, just because I was such a big fan. And the same thing with Frank Miller and the Dark Knight series and Batman Year One. I picked those up because they were, I followed those creators more so than like DC, I guess, at that point.
Right.
But it didn't help me stay with DC. I pretty much was like a year or two, I bought a few books and that was it. So I just feel like Marvel has better characters, and back in the day had much better creators. From what I understand now, that's not quite the case, but I don't read much new books. So
right. Okay. All right. And Albert, how about, what's your take on it?
Sure. So I kind of jumped into the hobby of comic books in different moments in my life. So when I was 11, I was reading like the Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men series when it was ongoing. So that was like what opened the door for me. And it was really cool because the Ultimate Universe is like kind of modern day, and it's like very accessible. As I got older, I watched a lot of the Batman movies, and I got really into Batman. So I found myself gravitating towards like DC stories just because I was interested. So like in my collection, I've got, once I started taking the hobby a little bit more seriously, I got really deep into hardcovers, and I realized I was way more excited about buying DC books, like the big stories that they have there. Like the Crisis story blew me away. I was so like blown away to see all those characters together. I today am reading all the current issues, and as I'm picking up my books, I'm reading every week, and I'm realizing like, wait, like I'm way more excited about the DC books, and I'm more satisfied when I'm done reading it. So like Nightwing right now, the Batman story is phenomenal. Nice House on the Lake, phenomenal. All the Milestone Comics issues with like Hardware, Static, Icon and Rocket, like I'm super excited about all of those stories. And probably the biggest thing that I think that DC is doing right now is the Black Label line, which is basically it's comics for adults. So 18 and up, you're gonna read this, and like there's very little censorship. They have complete freedom. So every story is just like there's a sense of like excitement that I haven't really felt with Marvel. Marvel obviously does a great job with like making brand new characters who are super interesting. I without a doubt, PJ, I agree with you. I think their characters are better, but I think that right now with the like freedom in the storytelling, it's just exciting to see, because DC's almost like leaning towards that indie vibe right now, where their stories are just like really different. So yeah, right now I'm all in on DC. I mean, you can see the back. I got like these,
Yeah, I know.
I love comics in general. I mean, everybody here obviously does. But
some crazy omnibus back there, man.
I love omnibus.
Yeah, he's sick with the omnibus, bro.
Yeah.
Sick with it. I saw that when you posted that picture, when you was doing the shelf and you was putting it together, and then you finished it with all your book. I was like, damn, this dude went ham.
Yeah.
Ham.
The way you just said that though, about how DC is like has kind of like a lot of these new innovations and new stuff. It got me thinking though, if you really think about it, Marvel was kind of the top dog for a long time. I feel like DC almost got not desperate, but like they basically got like nothing to lose. Basically, they'll try all these new kind of concepts and new titles and new directions, and you know, it's paying off for them apparently. But I think Marvel almost needs that. They need to get like, you know, shaken up. They need like to just refresh, just throw anything out there. Just, you know, try some different concepts and ideas. You know, because all this all new Marvel and all the rest of the stuff they've been doing the last decade is, in my opinion, not very good.
I agree. You know, I'm a big Marvel guy, obviously. You know, and I do support DC. I do like Batman. You know, I enjoyed Batman. I actually started picking up that volume 3 when it first came out, and I've never stopped picking it up, even when the story was shitty, and then it got good, and then, you know, back to shitty. You know, and I still continue to it because I'm, you know, loyal to that, you know, character, Batman. You know, which to me is like pretty much the only character in DC that I actually enjoy. I mean, the last thing I want is to be tagged on IG on fucking Green Lantern. Don't fucking tag me, let alone a DC book, but then you're gonna tag me on some lame ass Green Lantern. Like, don't do that. Yeah, I knew you was gonna pull it out. Yeah, see, that's some fresh covers though. But like, come on now. Like, it's like,
So
you know,
the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run, I was on Reddit looking up like what are some good stories to read. That honestly would change your mind about Green Lantern. The story is really, really good. Like that's what they're gonna make the HBO show based off of. They're gonna, I mean, this is the word on the street because it's so interesting. Because so the I mean, this I'm going into it like just a little bit.
No, go ahead, bro.
The rings are powered by emotions. There's a huge, wide emotional spectrum. So you get to see people who are like really, they use that emotion for power, and they have to use that in a way that is surprising. Like if you want to control people, you could use fear, you could use hope, you can use many different methods, and like you could see that in politics today, right? Like what kind of methods does Trump use for power? What kind of methods does Barack Obama use for power? And you can kind of see it represented in that comic in like a unique way. So I'm obviously a DC fan. I mean, you can.
Of course, no, and that's great, and that's what we want. You know what I mean? I want to have somebody here who appreciates DC just as much as I would appreciate Marvel, or Paul appreciates Marvel. You know, which ain't fair. We should have, you know, but hey, that's the way it happens. It works out that way. We figure it out. But the whole point of this is that, you know, when they both came up, obviously they fed off each other. You know, it's obvious when you look at characters, you know, how they, you know, mimic one other character they had, and they vice versa did it with each other. You know, they fed off each other at some point. And of course, you know, there was always that big divide between them. But then I appreciate in the books when they did the Marvel DC, you know, universes, and they brought them together, you know, even though sometimes it was kind of half-assed with the fights, you know, where they kind of set the fight up, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of feel like, you know, with the whole Hulk, you know what I mean? When he fought, like there's no beating Hulk, bro. Like, you cannot beat Hulk. Like, that's not happening. You know what I mean? And
who did you go against?
Who was it? It was Superman.
Oh, well,
some of those that series they had in the 90s though, some of those were like terrible, like the matchups, because it was clean voted. So like Wonder Woman fought Storm, and I love X-Men and I love Marvel, but in my opinion, Storm would not be able to defeat Wonder Woman, but in that series she does. So
yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
Oh no, that was crazy.
By the will of the readers.
They not for nothing, they downplay like Wonder Woman's ability. Like even in the movie, that crappy ass movie, when I saw it, I was like, man, they really downplay her powers. You know what I mean? Her strengths and her abilities. And I'm still waiting for her sister. When they're gonna show her real sister?
Nubia, right? Yeah.
When they're gonna show Nubia, bro? When they're gonna put up a you know, African goddess up there, and that be like, yo, that's Wonder Woman's sister.
Yeah,
like, that's what I'm waiting for. You know what I mean?
All right. So if we compare, obviously, like the cinematic universe, Marvel. Right. I mean, come on, Marvel's like elite level, but we got to get some respect to DC. Like they do have some hits that are. Really
you know what DC killed? I'm gonna tell you right now, the animation. DC got so many animes out there that's why when I go on and I'm looking for like, you know, Marvel anime or like any type of like comic book type related stuff, DC dominates. It's like all these fucking Batman, Superman, you know, and it's like, damn. And I'd be like, yo, what the fuck, Marvel? Like, get your fucking game up, you know. But then again, Marvel got it with the actual movies. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't compare DC movies with the MCU, you know what I mean? It's some might say, yeah, what, you crazy? Even like that Snyder cut, you know, like, oh, if you look at that, that was great. I'm not even gonna deny it.
It was amazing.
I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed it.
I don't know about great. It was better than the regular one.
Right, it was better. I'm not right. It's not gonna
great's a little strong now. That's not
way more entertaining.
You're comparing it.
Way more entertaining. You know, but you know, overall, I think like you know, I mean, we got some examples here I wanted to show, you know, of how they. Oh, another one too was that I didn't get a chance to upload was a new character, Red Lion, from DC. He's called Red Lion, right? And I think he came out in 2016 or 2017, something like that. And he's like the splitting image of Black Panther, but just red. He's red. He got like a mane, like this like lion's mane, but he's identical, like the same all black, you know, but red though.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just like, come on now, like, you know, that's not good.
There was a recent Marvel like storyline where it was the recent one. It was like the big one that was like a crossover with all of them, where they had like these they had this one character that looked identical to Wonder Woman. I know someone in the comment section can put it down. It blew me away. I was like, how is this legal? Like,
yeah, I remember seeing the cover with her, and I do double takes. I thought it was a DC. I'm like, oh, that's Wonder Woman. And I looked at it and I was like, what? That's Marvel? How can they do that?
These guys, they get away with it.
Yeah, they really do. They really do, man. So here's some examples here that I thought were pretty interesting. You know, unfortunately, guys, it's gonna take up the whole screen, but I'll figure that out as we go along.
Oh, good.
So here's a perfect example. You know, you got Darkseid and Thanos. Now, I enjoy both these characters. I think both characters are freaking dope.
Yeah.
You know, but you could clearly see here how Marvel, you know, bit. You know what I mean? And was like, yo, we need a Darkseid type character. And here you go. You know,
there's
another one.
Oh yeah, it's a big one.
Another one. But that's a given. These are like older characters.
She plays the same character. It's like, it's really weird.
Right.
True.
Then you have
add the Atom and Ant-Man.
Yeah, the classic. And then of course, this one I was like, ooh.
You never know.
That was bad. That was bad. And these are like more like, you know, not so old. These characters ain't that far back there.
You know what I think is weird? Wonder Man. I think that was a weird thing for Marvel to do.
Yeah, Wonder Man. That threw me off, man, a little.
It was weird.
You know? Yeah.
I the first time I saw him was in like Rogue's first appearance, that story. And he was in the Avengers. And I'm like, who is this guy? And he has the same
Wonder Man. Who is this guy, right? Wonder Man always came off to me, even with the name. It was like they went to DC, or DC was like hustling characters, and they were like, I'll take Wonder Man.
Yeah.
Marvel was like, I'll take Wonder Man. Fuck it. I'll take that nigga. I'll make it work. You know? That's what it felt like.
In the comments are saying Man Thing and Swamp Thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Man Thing, Swamp Thing. Yes, of course. That's a big one. Man Thing, Swamp Thing.
Deadpool, you know, Marvel's Deathstroke.
You got Red. How about the Red Hood? You know, so that's another swap right there.
Yeah.
So it's so many of them. I mean, you got so many, and I think like that's why I think for me, to be honest with you, I don't like Superman because I think Superman is just OD. You know what I mean? He's too. For me, being a kid who grew up playing with like like Dungeons and Dragons and all those like role playing games and the X-Men role playing games where you create your own character. You know, I really learned and understood the whole dynamics of creating a character. You know, and then when you playing a character that's just super powerful, it's like it's boring. It's like this shit takes all the fun out of it. You know, because you cannot beat this person. It's just unbeatable. There's no weaknesses, and then when you create characters, you have to create weaknesses. Oh, his weakness is kryptonite. Yeah, motherfucker, how many niggas got kryptonite? You know what I mean? How many niggas walking around with kryptonite in the back pocket? You know, like you got to take a piece of his planet floating in
Yeah, I mean, he's just how do you write
across the
a
fucking
story?
galaxy? You know, it's like only Lex Luthor seems to be the one that fucking always manages to get it. You know, so
right now DC has a Superman story. Superman's how Tom Taylor's writing it, and Tom Taylor is phenomenal. Like this guy's elite. And one of the things that they're exploring is like, because Superman is a reactive kind of superhero, right? Like there's a alien that comes and I'm gonna go get it, but he's not. His role isn't to prevent the aliens from coming. So his son is now taking the mantle, and he's gonna explore that way of like, well, should I be preventative? How, you know, this is Jason. So I think that like when you're talking about like superheroes, there's different kinds of storytelling. Spider-Man is operating in this like world, and his impact is limited, right? He can't stop an asteroid from coming. But a Superman, he can literally be the ruler of the entire world. So like that's an interesting story. Like, why doesn't he do that? You know, there's a lot of opportunities for different kinds of storytelling with the DC.
yeah, I think so.
You know, but it's just all, it always depends on the writer. Some writers are lazy and they solve the problem in the slowest way possible. And I'm like, that's you're stealing my money. I like stories that talk about like, well, should Batman kill the Joker? Should he ethically? You know, and if he doesn't choose to, can you like give me a reason why I can disagree with you and change my mind?
Yeah, there you go. I think a lot of it, you're right. A lot of it does fall on the writing and stuff, but the first thing that got to grab you is the art. You know what I mean? I think because that's what you look at. You look at the cover, you look at the lettering, you look at all that stuff, you know, and that's what draws you in first to actually, let me check this out.
Yeah.
Then you want to read it, look in the inside. You know what I mean? So a lot of that too has a lot of play in the way I look at DC. And a lot of times when back in the days, it was like DC was like kind of weak. You know what I mean? When it came to that department, you know, especially when Marvel had all these heavy hitters, you know, and it was just like, oh shit. Of course, you know, you had, like you were saying, you know, sometimes they cross over to DC and then they do some dope shit, you know, but it was never enough for me to become a general DC fan where I'm picking up other titles and other books outside of what that artist was creating, you know. So I think that's, you know, where to me it was just a thing where I just grew up with Marvel. You know, I think that's what a lot of it had to do. I was introduced to Marvel. I had nothing but Marvel around me, so I just embraced Marvel as the go-to for comics. You know, and then I fell in love with all those characters, obviously, because that's all I know. And then when DC came along, it was like too late. It was like, I'm already fixated with Marvel, and you're not really bringing it right now. Y'all got some fucking dude with a ring, and he's making a bat, and he's like hitting you with he's driving over you with a lawnmower. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you know, but that was back then. You know, obviously it's different now, you know, but back then you got to imagine that's what I came up with. You know, so it was, I totally was turned off to DC. And then, of course, with Superman, I was like, fuck out of here. Like, he was just such a sucky character to me. Like, I can't stand Superman.
I get it.
You know? But Batman, that's the dude. He's peak human ability. He's like the peak of all humans. Like, he's the most freshest dude ever, and he got money. Like,
I don't know if you know this. Half of DC titles right now are Batman related.
Yeah,
that's wild.
That tells you right there. That tells you right there.
That is like, that's too much. There's only so many Batman stories you can tell.
That's that scheme right there. You're right. I probably got to be a little older. I mean, I am the 70s, but I didn't come up really with Green Lantern like that. You know what I mean? Like,
so I was at Terrificon, and when I was hunting for comic books, I was looking for DC, like Silver, like early stuff. Aquaman, one of the funniest, most ridiculous characters ever. You can get like the first 10 issues of Aquaman for like under $100 each, easily. Which is mind blowing because it's Aquaman, like it's a household name.
Right.
And if you try to get like a Doctor Strange book or you know, any Silver Age Iron Man, nice shirt. But you know what I mean? Like those are impossible to get for a high grade, good price. So right now, if you're like me, like if you're trying to look for Silver DC, this is a great time.
You know,
Yeah, man. I have
a
been.
reason for that though, because Marvel and the Silver Age was great. Kids reread that stuff a million times. The DC stuff was so lame. Kids just bought it, read it once, put it back on the shelf, and it stayed in nice condition. So,
But you can't doubt the movies have definitely put an impact on it. You know,
Mm.
like if you see, you know, what was happening with the Kung Fu guy, I forgot his name, Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi,
Like his books are all on fire now. You know, everybody wants
yeah,
them.
everything he's doing is on fire right now.
Yeah, and like that wasn't, you know, I have an old Kung Fu one with the white tiger, and that was really easy for me to get. Like it was quick. When that movie was announced and like the trailer and everything, now those books are out of reach. It's hard.
I'm actually picking up a lot of Namor stuff right now. Actually, I've been picking up because of the movie that's coming out. I've been you know, doing my own little speculation, so I've been picking up some stuff and not speculation like that because I know Sov is in here. So please
and watch it.
So we're gonna be talking about that next week.
Nice.
About that next week. That's
Albert, you picked up a Submariner one, didn't you? At a terrific.
Oh my God, man! I'm so happy.
Yes, he did. He picked it up. I was like, that's one on my list right there, man. I gotta get that
classic.
This
The other thing you got to factor in too, especially in the Silver Age.
Hell yeah, that's clean.
Cover. DC's covers were kind of pedestrian compared to the Marvel stuff.
Right.
Kirby had all that dynamic action, the big hands, and like the you know Stan Lee's like crazy dialogue on the covers. You know.
Yeah.
Marvel back then was like DC now, maybe in that regard, like they were the new up and coming company, so they were just doing whatever they wanted. They really had no restraints.
Yeah.
And so they tended.
It's true. It's true what he's saying. No one cared about Shang-Chi for years. It's true. Nobody cared about him.
Yeah.
And that's how it be now. And that's how it be. Like people just jump on the bandwagon. They see something that's coming up. They get FOMO. And all of a sudden now that character was like the best character ever to them. It's like stop
I hate that shit. But
they suck. Like if that wasn't your character, just keep it 100. You know what I mean? Just keep like me, Winter Soldier. You know, that was not my dude. I told that to Paul when we first spoke about it. I was just like, I don't give a fuck about Winter Soldier. Like, I could have gotten his books. Yeah, I was ahead of the curve. I could have got it for $20, $30. I didn't want the shit. I was like, nah, I don't give a fuck. I don't want it. That's not my character. I'm not gonna, just jump on it because now it's gonna be worth money if you get his book. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about that character.
I'm actually curious about that or not. You mentioned that, right? Like Winter Soldier. Now I don't read DC obviously, but Red Hood is not Tim Drake. He was the Robin that got killed in the explosion.
Yeah, Jason Robin. Yeah.
So, and then he came back kind of as a villain, from what I understand. Initially, at least. Same thing with Winter Soldier, right? Basically the same.
Yeah.
I mean, he came out first, though, but like they're basically kind of the same.
It's the best friend or sidekick who eventually, was mind warped. It's a great trope in comics.
Right.
You know, like it's like Spider-Man and his best friend, right? Like, it's a great comics are the best. Like those.
I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah.
PJ.
Oh, wrong shoulder. This guy back here.
Yeah, exactly, right there.
I started out as a Spidey fan, though. Probably like a lot of us did when we were kids. Man, all kids love Spidey.
Yeah, man.
Jason
Everybody loves Spidey.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so your favorite is Captain America?
Wolverine. I do love Captain America too, though. But even Captain America, I didn't really become a big fan until the Ed Brubaker series where Winter Soldier was introduced. That's why I told Morb if he didn't read that, he should read that series. It's excellent.
Yeah, I read it because I'm not into.
Nah, it's great though. It's good. I ain't saying you're gonna like Winter Soldier after, but you'll love that story. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Wow. How about you, Albert? What's your favorite DC character?
DC. Oh, that's good. So my answer is not very common at all. I'm a big Static Shock fan. I've collected probably every book. Just his first volume. I'm still working on it, but
that's what's I'm not there. I just got like his first book, and that's it. Like the first solo title. Like
I love it. I think I'm a big so what DC did with Milestone Media. I don't know if everybody here knows. It's something that I'm very passionate about. There was Black artists, Black writers, Black editors who decide, hey, we're not happy with the way people of color are represented in media. They didn't use the word people of color, but and they decide, you know what, like we're tired of John Stewart being the Black Green Lantern. He can't just be a Green Lantern. Like every Black character was the black character. It wasn't just like a different person.
Right.
So they decided we're going to make a whole new universe with black characters. But when you're in a black universe, their blackness is not the front focal point. So it provided opportunities for really interesting storytelling where it was more about like what's happening to these characters. And I read like the stories within Static, within like Icon and Hardware are very real and raw. DC and Marvel were too scared to approach some of the topics. Like there was one Icon and Rocket story about abortion. There's stuff about like violence with the police. Like this was happening, in the 90s, and they're talking about things that are super relevant even today too. So that's Milestone Media Comics are my favorite. So Static represents that.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, man. Yeah. I respect that. I definitely respect that. I definitely collected those. I just the first issues. I picked up a few. I was like, I gotta have that in my PC.
Yeah.
Like that's something that that represents the culture, represents who we are, where we're from. So that's something I'm very big on that. If y'all already know,
yeah.
I'm all about my peoples. Yeah, man. Well, anything that represents the culture, that's what I'm about. And definitely that Static Shock and the whole Milestone that they're doing it right now.
So let me ask you guys a question. So like, what between DC and Marvel, which one do you think does a better job of representing, communities that are not always represented? So like, even not just like, black, white, but even like disabled people or people you don't really think of when you think of like the diversity.
Wow. That's pretty deep. That's a good question, actually. For me, it's kind of hard to actually have an opinion, to be honest with you, because I don't read DC in that much, so I can't really opinionate on it. That would be a perfect question for someone else who does. So, but my answer is going to be biased, because I don't know what DC has done thus far, but of course I'm going to say Marvel, because when you look at a lot of the old stuff that Stan Lee was doing and Kirby was doing, they were hitting a lot of sensitive topics, a lot of cultural topics, hitting racism, and feminism and all that stuff. They were hitting everything, with women's rights and so I of course I'm going to say Marvel, but they were doing it for a long time, because in the beginning DC, when you have like books like Lois Lane, where she's like going to be Curious Black, that's a perfect example. That's an old school book, and at that time, Marvel was not doing stuff like that. Marvel was nowhere near touching stuff like that. So if anything, DC at that time was kind of sketchy, bro. So from my opinion, back then, now I don't know. I'm pretty sure that they're doing a lot more, for the culture. Pretty sure, because
probably most companies nowadays they're all kind of again, like Morb, I don't really read DC, so it's hard for me to comment too much on it. But just from what I see on the racks, what I see on social media, it seems like they're pretty inclusive. They kind of have a pretty broad, kind of characters and storylines and background stuff. But I feel like Marvel does too, basically. But I say traditionally, like back in the day, I mean, Black Panther came out in 1966. Right. From the early 70s. Luke Cage had his own title in the early 70s. So I feel like maybe at that point Marvel was a little bit like ahead of DC as far as pushing the although the Green Lantern Green Arrow series from the early 70s by Neil Adams, that had a lot of kind of social and cultural relevance and stuff going on in their stories as well. So I guess it depends on your perspective. I mean, I'm still inclined to say Marvel. I mean, they basically had handicapped superheroes, right? I mean, Daredevil's blind. Someone commented Professor X was in a wheelchair. That's from 1963. So, although I think the Doom Patrol had a guy in a wheelchair too, and they came out, I believe, actually before the X-Men. So, it's tough to think.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, just because like with the history, it's so like the Lois Lane stories. I've read a few of them, old ones, like really old ones, and they were horrible to women. It was always about getting married. They had no other like purpose besides being, another person's like reason for redemption. it was bad. And I when I would read them, I was like, damn, like they weren't even trying to get like a real voice in there. So and when I think of Marvel, like back in the day, it definitely goes right to X-Men. I mean, the X-Men was intentionally diverse. Like I read the first, the giant size X-Men, literally from all these different countries in the world in one team. I always thought they were like American from other teams, from like American diverse, not actually like international.
Nah, they're from different countries. Yeah, exactly. That's what made it so dope, right?
Yeah,
it was like, dude, that's what I think that's what captured a lot of people and really catapulted, Marvel when they created this whole X-Men, like, the new X-Men. It's like it really took them up another notch because at that time, it was needed. At that time there was a lot going on, and I think they capitalized on that, definitely. I mean, it shows in their stories, it shows in their books and titles. And I feel like for me, DC has always been playing like catch up, until recently. Yeah. They were playing catch up, always with Marvel. Because Marvel always kept giving them something that they were like, oh shit, fuck. I ain't think about it like that. I ain't see it that way. And that's how I felt like with DC. It's like they were always just never, they were like the B team. You know what I mean? Like you got a basketball team, you got the A team, and then you got the B team. They were the B team.
The JB.
Right.
So I have a little theory of how Marvel was super inspired by DC's cinematic universe. So, I mean, they've got Endgame, they got Infinity War, they're crushing it. So, like, what could they possibly learn from DC? I think that, like, movies like The Joker that were phenomenal, movies like right now Suicide Squad, like, they have complete freedom where they're doing whatever they want. They can use F-bombs, they can do anything, tell a completely unique story. They can have 4 Batmans going at the same time. Like, DC has no rules.
Yeah,
I think that Marvel, with their huge continuity and like interwoven things, I think they were feeling trapped in their storytelling abilities because, like how many, you can't really tell a story without it being connected to everything and now without it having impacts. So like, how do you tell a Galactus story where Galactus eats the planet or eats the Earth? You know how
you do it?
How?
In another dimension, in a whole other reality. That's how you do it now. That's why they created that.
Yeah.
So they could be able to play off that and now be able to do all these stories and still have the continuity to tie it all in.
Yeah.
So they got slick with it. I get you. I'm 100% with you on that. That eventually you lock yourself in, but they have somehow they've been able to just keep working their way out of it.
They're geniuses. But I think that DC inspired it. I mean, obviously, like it's in the comics. It's not that like groundbreaking.
Right.
But I think when they saw DC like completely free, they're like, how can we get that? How can we tell like our R-rated Marvel story?
I think that's why I like the MCU so much, though, right? Because back in the day, old school guys who've been reading comics a long time, the continuity was tight with Marvel.
Right.
Something happened in Thor. You'd see ramifications from it in Daredevil or whatever. Like the whole universe was just tight. I love that. I love reading the book and knowing like the stories mattered. And I just feel like since like the 2000s, even late 90s, I guess you could say, it's like they just make shit up as they go. Like, oh yeah, we can't do that because that character's not around. Fuck it, we're just gonna write him in it. Like they just forgot about the continuity and it kind of sucked. But when the MCU started out, it was like being in the beginning again. Like Iron Man, you saw his origin. Nick Fury coming in the background, assembling the team. They eventually get to the one big movie with the whole team. And, I like that continuity was cool again. That's like how the comics used to be back in the day.
Right.
Nowadays, it's like they don't give a fuck. They just write any story, any character. He's dead. Oh, don't worry about it. They're alive again. It's like they don't give you no explanation. So it with that is good freedom, right? Because like you said, you can actually write the story where Galactus does eat the fucking planet. But at the same time, you can't do that in mainstream because then that's the end of the comic line. You're starting over. So it's I guess that's why What If fills in, right? Because DC is I think Elseworlds or whatever, where it's like we could do this cool story and show what would happen, but you know what? It's a what if. What if?
Right.
So what do you think about? Did you watch the What If episode?
Yeah,
I think that's me. I haven't even watched it yet. I don't know what I've been doing.
Yeah, I watched it.
Caught up in Bad Batch, and I just haven't had a chance to watch it.
What you think, Albert? What do you thought of it?
I thought it was very smooth and quick. I think it was short. Like it kind of left me wanting a little bit more. And I felt like it was a little bit. I think they could have done a little bit more. I'm hoping that the next episodes are more like. I think they were trying to ease people in, but I'm hoping that some of the characters are not just like one and dones.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that this new Captain America, or Captain Britain, not Captain Britain, whatever, you know what I mean? That she ends up being somehow tied in. Because like if the multiverse is happening, multiverse of madness, you can throw in anybody,
Right, no, you could put anything in. Like, I agree with you. I feel like it was good, but it could have been better. I felt like they rushed through it a little bit and to try to get to a lot of points. Yeah, I don't want to ruin it, for Paul, but
I kind of read online like basically exactly what you're saying, that like they felt it was rushed a little bit.
Yeah, it was rushed. They really ran through it. I was like, they should have slowed down, give us a little more, get a little more in depth. I wanted more of that play between, Rogers and her. Like, I wanted to see more of that, and I wasn't getting that. It was very fast and it was very abrupt. You know what I mean? Like in your face, like get it, like try to get you to figure it out quick.
Yeah,
and you're just like slow down. I want to take it all in. And
the animation is really like beautiful. It was like great animation. Like
the animation was great. No, hands down. It's that classic. I loved it. I love the animation.
Voice acting was great.
Right. I enjoyed it. Definitely enjoyed the animation, but I felt like I'm hoping for the next ones to come because I'm a big what if guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big what if guy, guys. When I say I'm a big what if guy, I'm a big Paul knows. I'm a big what if guy, bro. You know what I'm saying? Since I was a kid, my collection of what if is from when I was a kid. Like I'm really big on what if. I have the full volume 1 and 2. I'm a big fan of it, and I always enjoyed it because they always gave it a twist. Every time I thought I knew what was gonna happen, by the time I was like 3 pages towards the last, I was like, oh shit, where the fuck is this going? Like I was like, oh shit, I thought they were going this way. And it went totally to the fucking left. And that's why I love What If so much. Like to me, I was like, when they were coming out with What If, I was like, yo, they better fucking come correct, bro. Because What If is such a dope fucking title and run that to me it was like I had to always get my hands on the fucking What If.
So Morb, did you feel that way at the end? Like, did you feel like there was like that moment where it was like a twist, or did you feel like
no, because I was familiar with it. You know what I mean? So it's not like it was gonna. But I felt like they really could have done a little bit more. You got to understand that when it comes to animation and stuff like that, you really and movies, they have to really simplify and walk the audience through. Yeah. They can't really take, because not everyone that watches What If is going to be somebody like us, a big comic head that knows the story or read the story or read the What If, you know what I mean? But again, they have to simplify it. And I was like, it's okay. But I didn't feel that it was such a big twist, obviously, because, she became, Captain Britain, it was just like, all right, here we go. This is it. We know what's going to happen. She's not going to fail. She's going to win. There's no real consequence other than, whatever. Right. It's just, but like when I posted the if Hulk killed Wolverine or Wolverine killed Hulk, there were consequences in those storylines. At the ending of Wolverine killing Hulk, he ended up dying. You know what I mean? So because of him killing Hulk, it caused that, sequence of events that could have avoided him dying. But because he killed Hulk off, Magneto was able to get him to kill himself, controlling him.
Well, hopefully they take some chances with the show. Like you were saying, like you knew at the end she was gonna win or like whatever.
You knew that, right?
Like,
you knew it. So
what if though? You could throw out that curveball and like, no, we lose or whatever. Just like because it's not really, it doesn't count. You know what I mean? It's a what if. So just take chances. Like don't just do the traditional. At the end, the hero comes in and saves the day type situation.
Right. Exactly.
I just finished watching. Like Invincible, and I read the whole thing. I got those books too. Invincible's amazing.
Oh no, yeah, Invincible.
I think the reason why the animated show did so well is because they went off the wall and just went crazy. Like, I mean, not the whole show, but like there was episodes where you were like, what is happening? Like, I was not expecting it to go this way. I think a lot of people are looking for that in their animated series, you know? But
definitely.
I'm about to go, what if, because I just finished reading that Spider-Man Shadow book. It's like the new one. And like it did that, the same thing that you were just describing, like it had a twist that I wasn't expecting it to end that way. And that was my first what if story. So you're getting me excited about it.
Yeah, man. You look, if I would suggest, I mean, now it's probably like, you know, ridiculous to try to, you know, go pick up like the what if runs and shit like that. But if you could read it digitally, read those books, man, because it doesn't matter what story. Pick a random story or something that catches your eye. I guarantee you're going to be like, oh, snap. Like, this is dope. Paul, am I wrong? Like, what ifs, man? Or,
volume 1 and 2, both. I mean, the volume 2 got a little silly at the end.
Nah, volume 2, like, don't get me wrong. Volume 2 is like towards the ending, like after, like, you know,
90s, it just started.
Right. Once you get past, like, you know, 80s, you know, 70s, it starts to get a little funky. You know what I mean? And I kind of like tapered off. I'm not gonna say I got the complete 100%. I'll retract my statement earlier. You know, after a certain point, you kind of like pick and choose books.
Volume 1 was killer. I mean, every issue.
I'm gonna tell you right now, volume 1 is like, you gotta read that digitally, man. If it is amazing, man. Like, I love that shit. Like, like that was my thing. Like, you know, what ifs, any what if I saw, I was like, I'm grabbing this shit.
They all had like a tragic ending too. Almost every issue.
Right, and that's the thing. There were consequences to the choices that these characters made. It wasn't some shit like, you know, with the show, like, oh yeah, you know, I chose this, whatever, and I became a hero and I win at the end. No, there, like I said, Wolverine died. Like, he killed Hulk, and then he ended up dying because of killing Hulk. You know what I mean? And then when Hulk killed Wolverine, that caused so many characters to die. You know, and it created a void where Hulk was able to do more damage than he would have if Wolverine was alive, because Wolverine would have not, because of Wolverine's actions, would have subdued characters that would have actually put you know, a barricade in front of Hulk. You get it? It's a fucking mind game. It's like that's what
remember issue I think it was 46, the one what if Uncle Ben had lived, and like he makes finds out Peter is like Spider-Man powers. He makes him go to the Bugle and tell J. Jonah Jameson like, I'm Spider-Man and shit, like confess. Crazy.
Yo, it's so many, and this one right here, Wolverine was the Lord of the Vampires. That one is a dope one too. So I hit it right there. That's a dope one right there, and that's a dope cover. That's a dope cover.
So does DC, or did DC have an actual title just dedicated to all that? Or was it more like those Elseworld like one shots, kind of like?
It's the Elseworld stories, and like they still have them now. Like I told you, the Black Label books. Those are all considered out of continuity unless they say it's like in continuity. So like that 3 Joker story that was like breaking records, that's considered like an Elseworlds, but you know, like it's also not really at the same time. They never really like explicitly tell you. And in the past there was some. I don't think they had some back in the same time that What If was happening though. Maybe someone in the chat knows. But
so like Damian Wayne, he was introduced in, was it Son of the Demon? It was like a graphic novel, which from my limited Marvel knowledge was not supposed to be like canon or like in continuity, but now he is, right? Damian Wayne, he is
right.
So it's almost like if it gets popular enough, they're like, all right, cool, let's bring it. Kind of like Miles Morales, right? He was Ultimate Universe.
Yep.
He's like a
great
character.
Right. He was,
now he's in mainstream Marvel, you know. So
right.
Yeah, that was I think so I was a big Miles Morales fan. I still am, but way more before. And I think the thing that bothered me, kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth. They changed his backstory when they brought him into the 616, the main story, because they like, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but they killed his mom in the Ultimate Universe. Like his mom was dead, and I'm like, oh, this is like perfect. This is a Spider-Man story. Like,
right, exactly.
And brought her back in the new one. I'm like, this is kind of, like I was bought in. I was like, I mean, like I suffered with them.
You was invested already, man.
And then they restarted, and I'm like, Now I got to start over my emotions. Like, you know,
exactly. You got to reboot your emotions all over again.
Rebooting
That's
is,
tough, man.
I get why rebooting gets done. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, you know, it's hard as a fan. It's frustrating. Like I like the Flash a lot, and the Flash, they do it constantly with him.
Why?
You know, like it's always the same thing.
It's just not cool for long-time readers, though. You know what I mean? Like, so like you say, you get invested in something, a certain angle, a storyline, a character, and like you said, you know why they reboot it and restart it, because they're trying to get new readers and new people interested. But if you're a long-time reader, you're like, the hell, you know, I was into that, like that version of the character. Now you just restarted it. You know, you it's basically like when you go to get a cell phone, you know, and they tell you, thanks for being a customer for so many years, but you don't get shit out of it. And if you're a new customer, you can get this brand new phone with no money down and blah, 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 you know? So I always think of that when I go in those places.
I'm going to keep it, I'm going to keep it 100, bro. It's like, my thing is when they try to change things up, right? They want to revamp a character. They want to revamp a whole title or run, whatever. My thing is keep the fucking politics out of it, bro. Keep the fucking submissive, you know, subliminal fucking bullshit that y'all doing, you know, with y'all little politics, trying to push agendas. Like, keep that shit out of the fucking comics. Like, that's why I stand. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to remind me somebody's gay. Like, I get it. I know they are. Like, I've known it for all my life. Like, why you keep pushing it in my face? Like, why you keep telling me, like, this person is disabled? Like, oh, I know they are. Like, I could see with my eyes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, stop pushing these agendas. Like, I'm going to keep it 100, man. Like, fuck how y'all feel. You know, it's my thing is it just like everybody had that dude. Everybody grew up with somebody who had some type of diversity that was involved in some type, whether they were disabled, whether they were gay, whether they whatever. You know what I mean? We all grew up with those people around us, and we understood and we respected them. They were cool ass people. Yo, what's up? Are they, you know, chilling, whatever. But they weren't constantly like walking up to us with a fucking rainbow flag or with some disability stuff, like trying to like, you know, show us like every day, like, look, reminding you, like, look, this is where I'm at. Nah, man. And they're doing that with comics. Like, you know, when they do that with comics, to me, it's like you're pushing it. You're trying hard. You know what I mean? To get a certain demographics, and you're trying to get some type of acceptance that you already have. Like, I don't understand it. Like, you already have this acceptance. You're already accepted as far as that community. You know, I'm not talking about now us being people of color. That's totally different, because we're already in a systematic oppression. You know, that we're locked in. That's already, because they're already holding us down regardless. You know what I mean? I don't care how many comic books y'all come up with. I don't care if you make June 15 a holiday. You know what I mean? I ain't asked for that shit. You know what I mean? You ain't telling me shit with that.
Where was
like,
the survey? I didn't know there was a survey.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that don't mean shit to us. You know what I mean? Only them. Forget it. I see you.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, like the way that they do it. So like there was this podcast I was listening to about blind people represented in media and like TVs and movies, and the way that they represent them is always like inaccurate, like it's inauthentic. It's a way it just feeds into like a stereotype that you have of them, and a blind person who's reading it or who's like, you know, watching the movie or watching the show. Never mind, not watching. Like, you know, like the reality is not represented. And I think that like there's a responsibility for the creators to have to tell stories that are grounded in like an absolute truth. But when I think the most frustrating thing is when they try to capitalize on it. Like when Nike was supporting Colin Kaepernick, the kneeling, a part of it felt a little gross to me. I was like, okay, you know, because it's like, Nike, were you always there though? Were you always there when it was hard?
No. And what about their sweatshops?
I was going to say,
sweatshops.
Sweatshops making all your stuff.
You really think they give a fuck? Nike don't give a fuck.
A part of me like is happy that they're doing something, right? They're putting a voice out there. They're saying something. But another part of me is like, man, like I could smell the greed. I could smell that you're just trying to make money off of this audience, and you're not trying to be real. Like I'll give you another quick example. Subaru. They made car commercials that were specifically targeted to lesbians. And when they made the commercials, it wasn't like a corny, ridiculous, like, stereotype of lesbians. It was just like a regular couple that was like operating normally. And then this entire community of people felt represented, and they were like, I'm going to support this car company. I think that like when a comic company, or even like Warner Brothers, if they want to represent them, do it, but do it in an authentic and respectful way.
Right. To me, my part, when it comes to like even the MCU, when they did the Endgame, when all the women came down, I got your back. Like that wasn't even realistic. Like at least make it realistic where you're already showing the dudes are like caught up, like he hurt, he's fucked up. Well, this nigga Black Panther, they got him. You know what I'm saying? Like that the only resource that she has are the women. Then it's like, bam, there you go, hold it down. But when you do it on some like,
it was lazy.
Yeah, it was like, hey, women, like we got this, and it's like, mama, I know you got this. You know what I'm saying? But work it out where it's like, you're not like hamming it up. You know what I mean? You're not like.
I will say though,
they forced too much.
I will say though, in Endgame, there are a bunch of corny parts where men are kind of doing the same thing. Like
same thing.
It's bravado and like, puffing it out and like, being like ultra machismo. And it's like, that's
okay. Now you got to understand that's comic books. Once right there, because not only do women do it, because who does it too? Captain Marvel with her bravado. Women come in with the short haircut, like showing it.
Harley Rich with the
Harley Rich, right? You know what I mean? So it goes both sides, and that comes with comic book. That's why when some people used to tell me, I know we only got about 4 minutes left, so we're gonna get to it real quick. I just want to finish this off. One thing also is like I used to always hear like, oh, sexism. The way they put women dressed up. I was like, what about men? In them leotards, in them little tight ass suit with the little bulge. With their little V cut. You saw Luke Cage with his cut down, or even Wonder Man.
His shit like always down here.
Right, with the chest out. You know what I mean? And it's they do it to both genders. You know what I mean? It's ain't no favoritism here. You know what I mean? They both being shown that in their best light. You could say, physically.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's something that we need to come back to. That we need to stop trying to like create this like separation between male and female, that one gender is looked at a different way when another is not, and that's not true. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we are looked at the same way. You know what I mean? We are characters, fictitious characters in a book that is created by people who want to entertain. And yes, a lot of times I'm not saying that everything is perfect, because we got plenty of stories that we could go into that are a little sketchy. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, the agenda is that we just want to pull out a good book. You know what I mean? There's nothing else other than that. And I think that that's what we need to stick to, is putting out a good story, a good book, and a good background and some continuity with it that will tie everything in. And I think that's what we want. I don't want none of that political bullshit with it. I don't want to be force-fed some shit that I already know. Or the fact that I already respect it, but the fact that you feel you need to tell me to respect it is like, it's necessary.
I feel like the word political though is not the right one. I think it's like the corporate greed. I think that's because when it's because like X-Men was political, the Hulk is political. Like there's I mean I don't know if the Hulk is that political, but like there's certain things
that's part of the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, that's a political in its nature. But I think what I'm hearing more from you is that like you hate being spoon-fed in a disrespectful way. Like not like it's not even intellectual.
No, when I say political, because these topics are used politically. When you use gender, when you use sexuality, when you use feminism, when you use all these things, these are used in political platforms. So that's why I'm saying these are political topics, that are being pushed, political agendas that are being pushed in just a simple, basic comic book that should just be about the comic book, the story. Give me a good story. Like I said, I would appreciate that moment when all the women came together if it was genuine, if it had a backstory to it, if there was more substance to that, I would appreciate it and not look like they're just trying to women power, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, I get that, I respect that, but don't do it in a cheesy way. You know what I mean? Like, put it out there, you know, dope. Like, write it out correctly, you know, and take all that political bullshit out of it that you're trying to push, that agenda you're trying to push. Remove that out of it. Remove that platform, and just give me a fucking good movie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about all that other stuff. You know, like, and a lot of people feel that way, and that's why I feel like, you know, that's why I feel like the way I feel. It's just that I take that stance that, you know what, I don't need all that extra shit. You know, just give it to me the way it is, and make it a good story that I believe it, right? Because that's what we do. We want to believe that shit. When we go to the movies, we want to believe that shit. We want to look at it and be like, yo, that's real.
That's with the comics,
I'm invested in this story. I'm invested in these characters. But then when you try to do some flim-flam shit, and it's like, here we go.
That's what I'm saying, right? You said invested in the characters, right? So the big thing these last few years is people don't like when they like change established characters, like you know, some core trait of, like, Iceman is gay, you know, these last few years. Now, I've been reading X-Men since the early 80s. You know, that was never apparent. It was never really mentioned. I mean, there was extensive storylines with him in the early 90s. He had a Japanese girlfriend, and her father was kind of prejudiced against him because he was a mutant. And it's like, you know, we're just supposed to forget about all those stories, I guess, because now apparently he's gay. And so got a lot of old school people don't, you know, they kind of resist against that, those changes to characters. But the publishers or the creators are in tough spots sometimes, because these characters who are real old, they're all one way. Typically, especially if they're from the 60s, even 70s, they're all like white heterosexual males for the most part. So there really is no, you know, so that usually people will say, old school have, they want just create a new character, then just create a new person who's gay, you know. But it's like, it doesn't make sense that all these characters from back in the day would all just be, you know, straight and you know, lily white, so to speak, and perfect, and everything is like, so it's, you know, they're in a tough spot. If they don't change established characters and they just create new characters, people ain't really going to be feeling that either. So
it's like, when you look at, like, all the presidents of the past, all old white men.
Yes.
And I think like, if we found out that one was gay, one might think like, oh, they're just trying to push an agenda or like some idea, but also he might have been gay.
Yeah, more likely than not, they probably were, right? Like,
there's probably
several.
That's not the problem. The problem is Marvel voices. The problem is, you know, books that are now recent being created. You know what I mean? Like that run. You know what I mean? Come on, that right there is like the red flag for fucking trying to push an agenda. You know what I mean? Because you could have gone about it a totally different way. You know what I mean? In my opinion,
I haven't read it. I'm curious.
In my opinion, it's very, you know, in your face, you know, blatant, and that's why I'm like, you could have gone about it a different way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it could have been, and I'm not saying that, nigga, you could be gay all the fuck you want. My daughter is fucking gay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not don't get it twisted, y'all.
Yeah.
My daughter is gay. Like, my oldest, my firstborn, you know, and I don't have a problem with that. I embrace that. But my thing is, go about it the right way. You know what I mean? If you're gonna do this, do it the right way. Don't try to like I said, don't try to like skew somebody's, like, force feed them something, like, because nobody likes to be force fed anything.
The thing that I think the best example that, like, where I felt like this is absolutely wrong is when DC said that they're going to make a black Clark Kent, and I'm like, what the fuck? Black Clark Kent? Like, there's already there's like 3 other black Supermans,
right? Exactly.
You know, and they're great characters. That's what blew me away. I was like, okay, so now I get why people are like outraged in comics about this. That's definitely, you know, you can smell, again. That's why I think, like, you could smell the corporate greed. They don't give a fuck about this. They don't care about the issues.
No,
all they care about is trying to get that money from a group and just doing whatever it takes to get them to buy the books without realizing, like, you're actually being offensive.
Right. You see, there you go. It's like, made me feel comfortable. You know, Soul said it. You know, because it was just so blatant. You know what I mean? It was just so in your face. And I think going back to the black characters, that's another one that I was like, so unnecessary. I felt like that was so unnecessary. Like it's almost like if like you're catering. You know what I mean? You're not really doing it out of like, you know, when you do something like that, you know it's not coming from a genuine place. You know, you're just doing it because once again you want to sell books, you want to try to, you know, cater to these people. Okay, here you go. You know, I'm giving you something that, you know, I feel that I think this is what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But who sat down with you? Like, did you actually sit down with African Americans? Did you actually sit down with like people of color and actually ask them these questions? Like it's crazy. You know what I mean? Guys, not for nothing. I want to keep going. We're like 5 minutes past the hour. You know.
Wait, you know, but this is what the show's about, right? Like to getting into it. And
exactly. And this right here, like I want to continue. Like I really do, man. And if you guys want, we could keep going. You know what I mean? Like let's just keep going another couple minutes because this is really good. I hope everybody in here. We got 17 people. This is the most I've had this whole time. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to everybody in here. So that tells me something. And right now I feel that. So he's here. Appreciate you, brother. Leroy, he's up in here. Salute to you, brother. Fable.
More, but I think like I'm really glad that you were, you know, really authentic in talking about your family and like you showing the support for the gay community, because I think that like with these conversations it feels sometimes like you're walking through a minefield, right?
Right.
Because it's not really like, even if you did have a controversial idea that was like with a little bit of hate, it's not a safe time where people will like call you out with fire without even trying to teach. And I think that you as showing that like, hey, at the end of the day, we really do have only offer love to every community, and really we want there to be representation, but doing it the way that there's a way to do it that's correct. I'll get my last example that's like correct to the NFL. Roger Goodell, this guy, he decided like, oh, I support Black Lives Matter when it was the easiest moment possible, right? When you are supporting a group, when it's the last decision, when it's the last possible like choice that you have, you're not really supporting them. You're just following this wave, and it's the most inauthentic and garbage way to behave.
Yeah, he's just like, you know, holding his thumb up and feeling which way the wind's blowing, and which side is he gonna back, you know. So it's he takes the path of least resistance. So obviously, like you said, at that point, you know, it was easy for him to jump on the train, but he didn't really want to lead, so to speak. He just wanted to jump on once, you know, the train was already going, so to speak. Yeah. It's funny, like you were saying, Morb, though, you're talking about like black characters and different characters. And I was listening to the podcast on Sirius XM. They have a bunch of Marvel podcasts. And they one of them, they were doing an interview with Christopher Priest, who's a great writer for Marvel. He's African American, and he was talking about how when he was writing Luke, Power Man, and Iron Fist in the '80s, and or maybe it was Captain America. I feel like it was Captain America because he was talking about Falcon. Anyway, he wrote the dialogue, and they all came up to him, was like, "This is the worst dialogue we've ever seen for like a black person." Basically, they were trying to tell him, and he was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like, you know, the way he was speaking, he's like Sam Wilson was like at that point was like a leader or the director of like a community center or something. You know, he was basically trying to explain to them like, well, he's educated though. He's not going to talk like he's from the street. He's in like a professional environment amongst other like social workers and people. Wow. So, but they were like questioning him that like his dialogue didn't seem authentic. And he's like I didn't know what to do. Like they were like, I had to write him with like this Harlem street dialogue or it wasn't authentic to him, I guess, you know. So it just goes to show you don't even realize these are co-workers of his, and they didn't even understand that like what they're saying to him is like incredibly like you know, stereotyping and racist kind of and to some degree, and they're saying right to his face without even like, you know, understanding. Like the whole point of it is like this guy, he's an educated man, like he's the leader of this center, like, you know, how do you expect him to speak?
Yeah.
Right.
That like right over their heads. That like whole concept of that.
There's so many creators, African descent that don't get no credit. Back in the early '60s, '70s, when these characters like Luke Cage and especially Luke Cage, like everybody was there except the actual artist was African American. And who you think the writer was going to when he was talking about Harlem and trying to break down all the jive and he was going to the artist. You know what I mean? And the artist wasn't getting the credit of that run, because he was feeding him everything. He was like, yeah, I'm from the hood. Yo, you want to know about the hood? Here you go. This is what the hood is about. Basically. And he wrote it and he was just like, here you go. But he never got props for that, as being a co-creator of Luke Cage, and that's something that, when you look at, with our history, it's just, it's kind of sketchy. It's kind of fucked up, but the way things are going now, at least things are coming to light. At least we're getting a platform. You got Sanford Green with Bitterroot. You got so many, artists and creators, that I could tell you, and it just, it's overwhelming now how many, are coming up. But then again, you have that other side where it's like, okay, we have, some type of fucking, plan, to try to get more sales, but it's on a fictitious level. It's not actually on a genuine cultural level where, and you could see it in the books. You could see it in the writing.
Yeah, Albert kind of referenced that a few times earlier, how it's more like financial maybe than like.
Right. It's all financial. It's all about the bottom line.
It's more like financial.
It's all like, I think the easiest way to navigate it is like, what's the intention of this? And when you really start like asking those questions about like, well, what's the intention of them printing out, this character, like let's say Luke Cage, right? Mm. Luke Cage was a stereotype character. That's just who he was. Like he
definitely.
Definitely. And what was the intention of Marvel putting him in there? It's because they wanted to get, they wanted to get more Black readers, and they realized that they were doing it in a careless and stupid way. I don't know. Probably not. But I think hearing the audience is the key, and like just like us right here, just like a lot of people in the chat.
I think that Luke Cage started off stereotypically, but he kind of transformed into something more genuine, something more concrete. Okay. Of course, the first book started off that way, and I'm pretty sure people who came up in that time saw through it and were like, this shit seems kind of like, bullshit. Yeah. But with over time, me reading Luke Cage, I see the transition. Great. Mm. You know what I mean? When you see, like with Spider Comics, Billy Graham, it's
Billy Graham. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you see that transition, where you see that.
Sorry.
Yeah, blaxploitation. I mean, a lot of those characters, especially early '70s, like, Luke Cage came out in the time of like Shaft and
exactly. That was the
same thing. He's basically a character of like the kung fu craze. Right. But those characters have transcended obviously many decades.
Right. Right. And now when you look at Shaft, it's like what? It's not looked at in that way. Mm. Shaft is looked at differently.
He's a celebration.
Right. It's a celebration. So that's the same thing with these characters that we need to look at, and of course, it's going to take time. Things happen over time. Things transition with time. So I think that that's important, when we look back at it, that we have to remember the times that they were done, but how much they impacted us now, how much they've changed things now.
So I try to think of like whenever I'm looking at history and trying to see like, man, like that was crazy back then. How could that possibly be? I always try and think of it like right now, what our climate is like, and what are things that 20 years from now, people are like, man, that's so crazy. One of the things I did recently was I looked at all the writers on my shelf, and from the comic books I'm reading, most of them were men. I mean, like 99%.
Oh, of course.
And that right there, like I don't know all the writers' backgrounds, like ethnic, national, where do they live, what kind of, I don't know all that stuff. But gender is a pretty easy one to check, and just with the name. And that to me is always, I think about that a lot. Like we're missing a whole different voice. And if they really did care about having representation, then they should be having these characters written by women also, you know? And maybe I'm reading mostly stories that are like men are the main characters. I know that's the truth, but it's also like, I don't know, men also write stories about Wonder Woman that can be good. They can be writing stories with like I'm reading, what's that called? That book called Something's Killing the Children, you know, female lead, but James Tynion is the writer too. So it's like interesting.
You know, you got to understand that, you know, back then, it wasn't just comics. It was a whole society. Yeah. It was a whole mind state back in the 50s, the 60s. The woman stood at home. The man went to work. You know, and when you think of a superhero, when you think of somebody with muscles and with strength, you automatically think of a man. Yeah. You know what I mean? And even down to the genetics, you know what I mean? It's just, you just think that automatically. Back then it was like, oh, that's a man with the fucking axe, and he chops down a tree, he's the strong one, and the woman, whatever. But it was a society. It was a global thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where that's how it was. Even when we grew up as kids, it was just, you know, the man went out, the mother was, you know, holding it down. And even in third world countries, that's how it was. It was just a thing at the time. Yeah. Of course, things change. It doesn't mean that it was bad. You know, it was just ignorance. It was just that they didn't know no better. You know, and that's why being raised in that environment and being raised and pretty much being raised in this one, you know, it's, you look at it and you're like, yo, it really is not that crazy. You know what I mean? It's not like that next worldly shit that people think that, oh, women weren't writing then. Yes, they were. Yes, they were fucking writing then. You know what I mean? It's just that they weren't given the light. They weren't given the opportunity, but they were doing it. And a lot of people were either taking their ideas or taking, you know, you get what I'm saying? It wasn't like that.
They were in the process. They just didn't get recognition, maybe.
There was no recognition. There was none of that, but they were doing it, you know? And unfortunately, we lived in that environment where, you know, the men dominated everything and they felt like it's just a man's world. You know what I mean? At that time, it was just like, that was the dynamics of that society during that time. And then it slowly started seeing it transition during the 70s. And then the 80s, women started working more. And it was the 9 to 5, you know, the Dolly Parton came out with a song, you know, representing the females. And you saw a lot of that coming up from the 70s and the 80s. And it almost seems to me like the 2000s forgot about that. Like, y'all forgot? Like in the 80s, that was a big women empowerment era, was the 80s.
Can you think of any titles though you've read like that you collect that are written by women or runs? I mean, honestly, the only thing I can think of on the top of my head is like Daredevil by Ann Nesenti, like in the late 80s. Because I love Daredevil, so I was after the Miller run ended, which I must admit I didn't really like her run too much, to be honest, but mostly because it was such a transition from Miller to her. But I'm just saying, in the back of my mind, thinking right now, it is basically all men that write comics. I mean, that at least ones I gravitated to or collected. I mean, mostly X-Men was written by Claremont for like 20 years. So.
Gail Simone is a big writer. I've never read any of her stuff. I try, you know, I try to catch myself. Like, I know I gravitate towards like male characters. Even like when I listen to R&B, like I like male singers. I don't know why. That's just like I gravitate towards it. But I'm trying to like find those other writers because I know that there's other voices I'm missing. And there's I just read this book.
Louise Simons, X-Factor.
And Henderson Garbett wrote it, and I'm like, that's another man, but it was a female lead. I'm like, damn, I couldn't even get one of there. So,
you know, and you see, but that I feel like nowadays it's almost like if it's you have to, you know, and it's like, no, I don't have to. You don't have to. Yeah. You know, either you're good or you're not.
No.
You know what I mean? It's not about being a woman writer. It's about being a good writer, a good creator. And when you're a good creator, you're well respected and you're acknowledged as a good creator or writer or whatever you are. You know what I mean? And I think today that's the problem. We kind of single out, gender when it comes to fucking almost everything now.
But you were just saying also, like, it's not really a meritocracy. Like, sometimes people don't get recognition for their contributions in the work, and sometimes we gotta find it. We gotta find.
Right.
I can't believe that there's no good female writers. I can't believe it. I think that, like,
no, there are plenty.
There's a bias in comics towards male writers.
Dude, there's a bias just around the world, just globally. There's a bias. You know what I mean? Because that's just the way it's been from day one.
Yeah.
It's just that now that we have an opportunity to really with every generation, they kind of express themselves a little more, and kind of expose what's going on a little more. So this ain't nothing new. It's just the fact that now we're able to really, hit the point and really talk about it more than what we did back then. Because back then it was like, you don't talk about this stuff, or it's not really acknowledged. Because it's kind of like the norm. It's the way things are, so you don't question it. But now it's different. So now it's like, okay, we could question it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, something where, you got to shove it down people's throat because of your own little narrative, and that's what the problem lies. When people have this little narrative that they just, they stay there and they don't come out of that, little bubble they're in. And it's like, yo, you got to chill because you're not the only one living in this situation. Like, a lot of people would think, differently because of how I'll speak. But then when they actually get to know me, they're like, oh, shit. No, it comes from a different point of view. It's not like what I thought, and that's something that people nowadays have a problem with, that they instantly put you in a category because of something you say is like, boom, boom. If you speak of conspiracy theories, you're a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
What
we need to do as a society all together is go into conversations willing to, like, admit, maybe not even admit, willing to learn. Like, if you approach it every single thing, and maybe, like, you still think you're right, but listening with like ear, like, maybe you're right. I think that would make the world a better place.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, man.
And we're
everybody's gonna like fit in a box now. That's the problem.
Right, exactly. They put you in
label you, like you said. They look at you, or they hear the way you speak, or so they're quick to just put you in this one little box, and you. It's just not the way people are anymore. It's not the way the world is. Everybody's pretty, got varying interests and tastes in different ways, and it could grow up and live in an area, but. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Just you can just be anything, be however you want. There's no labels that need to be put on you.
Can you just
society
imagine,
does like to do that?
Yeah, can you just imagine, like, that's how the world actually was, like, just black and white? That's crazy. That would be a terrible world. It's ridiculous that we operate in that, like, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're bad, you're good. Like, you can be a complex person. You can believe in this and that. And you can change your mind anytime.
Right, exactly. You're constantly learning. You're constantly changing ideas, and
which is
social media will lead you to believe that it's not like that, though. Like, no, you're this, you're in this box.
Right, you're this, you're that, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah, but we all know in the real world, when we interact with people, it's not that way. It's people. Everybody's different.
Are there still people here?
Yeah, man. We got 13 people in the building. Holding it down. Yep, they're in the building. I appreciate everybody. Now we down to 12. Shout out to you who just left. I hope it was because you got to use the bathroom. We got to eat. But then again, thank you to everybody who's here. I know we took it over like 23 minutes over, but it was worth it. We needed to talk about these things. I know we're going to close it out now. Shout out to Albert. Thank you. I appreciate you so much for coming on. This was a great show. I think the people needed to hear this. We needed to hear this. Paul, appreciate you, my brother. Thank you for coming on, helping me with this.
Anytime.
I think today was amazing. I think it really spoke for itself, and it shows how we can have an intellectual conversation without actually disrespecting each other. Which is something that I see a lot nowadays, that people cannot speak with each other without actually disrespecting each other, without, and it's not, you can have an intellectual debate, you know, and it's possible. And we demonstrated that here today. We spoke about a lot of different things, you know, outside of the topic of Marvel vs. DC, which was the concept of the show today. And I appreciate everybody for hanging in there because today was crazy. Once again, I knew it was going to happen. I knew we was going to go somewhere else. Usually that happens with these kind of topics, which I appreciate and I love it, you know, and I hope you guys do it. For those catching the replay, thank you so much for checking us out. And once again, hit these guys up. Their link is in the description. Go follow them. They're on IG. Hit them up. I know Albert's also on TikTok, so he does a lot of TikTok. Hit him up on TikTok. I follow him on TikTok. And he be doing some beautiful stuff on there, you know. But yeah, man, once again, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you. I need to go eat. So I'm out of here. I'm starving. And yeah, once again, everybody in the chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I appreciate you. And yeah, I guess we catch you next week. Peace.
Peace.